Good evening, and it's Tuesday at 7:30 p.m., so you're joining us for Tuning Up with Iggy and Dave.
Sorry.
You're in the right place, don't worry. Iggy is, what is he doing this evening? Iggy is playing his violin.
In a rehearsal.
In a rehearsal, yeah. Iggy is back performing, which I think is a wonderful step in the right direction. We miss him dearly, but I'm very glad to have two members of our percussion section this evening as guests. Introduce yourselves, because usually I ask Iggy to do it. So please, to my right.
Sure. My name is Christopher Cabrera. I am Associate Principal Timpanist and Section Percussionist of the Hawai'i Symphony Orchestra, and I've been with the orchestra for 4 years now.
And I'm Brad Davis. I'm the Principal Timpanist, and I started in 2019, so I played about 2/3 of a season, and here I am.
Excellent. Well, I'm so thrilled. This actually completes our series on the percussion section. We now have had Jordan and Becca and now both of you here joining us. So the section is complete on Tuning Up. So there will be a medley video that we'll be putting out
Great.
After this comes out this evening.
We'll all play Porgy in unison.
Yes.
I don't really do that anymore.
You two are actually two of our newest tenured musicians of the Hawai'i Symphony Orchestra as well. I think we had 5 musicians in total that were just granted tenure by your colleagues. Has nothing to do with me whatsoever. What is that like? What does that mean for you both?
We can't wait to get back to the concert hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
it's an interesting feeling to be granted tenure when you're not in the middle of a season, through no fault of anybody else's, but this pandemic. So yeah, I think we're just all excited to get back, and with that extra bonus of the fact that we're both granted tenure now, and this can be our permanent home, our orchestral home. I think we're just both looking forward to it.
Excellent. Well, glad to have you as long-term colleagues here at the Hawai'i Symphony Orchestra. So we usually make sure everyone knows that they can text in their questions this evening and engage with us in conversation. This is where the TV magic happens here. You can text us at this number below here.
I don't see anything.
And we will get your questions, and we will respond to those this evening over the show. Questions for what's next for the symphony, what it's like to hit things for a living, and anything else you can think of. So, where should we begin this evening? The first question I always ask, and I'm going to ask it to Brad first because he's further away from me. Take us back to the beginning. I let you decide where the beginning begins.
Sure. Well, I started in 6th grade band. It's a pretty common story. Actually, when we tested instruments, I kind of wanted to play the French horn. That didn't really work out. My mom thought percussion was cool when she was in high school band, so that was kind of on my radar. But I tested for percussion, and the local music store rep told me that I probably wouldn't be successful at that and said I should probably play tuba.
Tuba.
But I didn't want to do that, so here I am. So I started in percussion against his judgment. Played all through middle school and high school. I didn't come from a musical family, so that was really the beginning of it. And then just started taking lessons, and things started to, I started to get good at it, started to really enjoy it. Went to Interlochen Arts Camp in high school.
What color socks?
What color socks did I have? I think they were, this is a tough question. I think they were light blue. It wasn't socks for me, it was a belt.
It was a belt.
So for the guys, it's a belt, or it was in 2008.
Okay.
I'm lost. What are we talking about here?
So at Interlochen, your classes are defined by the color of
your age.
your age.
The
So
color
like
of your
they're-
garment.
Yeah.
And the girls, it's socks, and the boys, it's belts. So I think the high school division was light blue at the time, but if not, somebody will yell at me.
we'll get a message about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's
Interlocking. It's an important
please
point.
continue.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of where I decided that this music thing might be worth, going into as a career. So I went to school for music. I went to University of Kentucky for my undergrad. Actually did a double major in performance and education, did a lot of teaching, a lot of really wide range of percussion there. And then kind of towards the end, or really starting pretty early, I started to migrate towards orchestral percussion and timpani as part of that, but not separate from it yet. And then when I went to grad school, I went to University of Maryland, and really just started to focus on timpani, decided that's what I was best at and what I liked playing the most. And I did that for 2 years, studied with Javon Gilliam, who's in the National Symphony, and went to a ton of concerts there and in Baltimore. I just started really getting into that world, which I hadn't been exposed to as much in my undergrad. And then after 2 years, I went to Indiana University for a performer diploma and studied with another National Symphony timpanist, the previous one, John Tafoya, and then also got out and did a lot of lessons in the area, in Detroit and Milwaukee especially, and just other places. It was a good central location. Played a ton, and then the beginning of my second year there is when I won this job. So here we are.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I want to ask, because I'm sure we'll get to this, and you narrowed in on this. You are a timpani player.
Yes, but it's a little complicated.
Why?
Because all of my education, I have three, well, I didn't actually get my degree at Indiana, but I have 2 percussion degrees. I've played a lot of percussion. I've taken percussion auditions. But like a lot of people, once I got to a certain point, I decided to specialize in one of those 2 areas. And that's really common. You definitely have some people who are, really successful doing both. But I think maybe Chris might disagree with this, but I think it's more common to see people specialize in one or the other. And part of it was my teacher at Maryland, but it was other factors. I just really enjoyed playing timpani, and I was better at it. Didn't have to work quite as hard at it. Still had to work quite a bit, but I still love playing percussion. I don't do it with the orchestra as much. I played on one concert, doubling, but that's my job is timpani, but I still, have a soft spot for percussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have questions about the audition process and rock star, famous timpani players and all those sorts of things, but I would like Chris, you to also take us way back to the beginning, as far as you'd like.
The year was 2001. I was 8 years old. I was in 3rd grade in San Francisco. I'm from the Bay Area. I started percussion in 3rd grade thanks to the San Francisco Symphony's AIM program, which brings in symphony musicians from San Francisco Symphony into the public schools. So they pay those musicians to actually teach students who are aspiring to be musicians. So that started in 3rd grade. That continued on, through grade school. I continued in middle school, and usually in middle school you actually start playing in band. In grade school, usually it has to do with you get a pair of mix-matched drumsticks, and you're playing on a Remo pad with maybe 20 other 8-year-olds in a public school cafeteria. So that was interesting. But you actually start band and playing with other people in ensembles, usually starting in middle school, 6th grade. Continued through that, and I got the chance to actually go to, it's similar to Interlochen in a way, not the summer, but the year-round school, where I went to a magnet school in San Francisco called the Ruth Asawa's San Francisco School of the Arts. And that was an interesting public high school to go to in San Francisco because, you know, maybe for the older audience, the show back from the 80s, like Fame. Do you remember that show? Maybe
I've
not.
heard of it,
okay,
yes.
Okay, it's similar to that in that, you know, it's an arts school. And so for the first half of every academic day as a student, you're going to math, you're going to your sciences, your English class. And then the second half of the day after lunch, you're doing all of your arts. So I would do, you know, music history classes, music theory classes, piano classes, aural skills, music theory, along with playing in ensembles like wind ensembles, symphonic band, and full orchestra. I got the chance to attend for my bachelor's Oberlin Conservatory in college, and then I got my master's at the Cleveland Institute of Music. And through some luck and some successful playing and auditioning, I landed the job out here, and that's where we're at now.
Here we are, getting ready to get back to the stage after a pandemic. So I was going to cheers and give whatever high five we do for our mascot at Oberlin, but I can't tell you what the mascot is. I think
Yeoman.
Yes, the yeoman, or the flying horseman or something.
We share an alma mater.
Yes. We were not there at the same time, but we were reminiscing over some of our favorite haunts of Oberlin during our time there. It's a special place. Yeah. So you went to school at Oberlin and Cleveland. So you were in the school of the Cleveland Orchestra, I suppose one could say. How is the Cleveland Orchestra different than every other orchestra in the United States and the world? What makes it unique?
I think Severance, and you know, which is the hall that they perform in, and even though you might think it has nothing to do with the generation that I come from and went to school there, George Zell, because that just affected him as a conductor, affecting the orchestra, you know, and its musicians. And my principal teacher when I was there, Richard Weiner, he was hired by George Zell at the time, which was interesting because back then, you know, auditions were very different. Back in you know, the 60s or even the 50s. These days you're given a list prior to the actual audition day, and usually candidates you know, are getting ready, you know, 2 months before, 3 months before, for that fateful day. But back then there were no lists. You just had to get ready for the audition by knowing the repertoire as best as you can. And the way that audition played out for my teacher, Richard Weiner, was, you know, he showed up and there was the principal timpanist at the time, Cloyd Duff, and there was George Zell, the conductor, and he would just call out different musical pieces, and the librarian would hurry up and try to find those pieces and would run up on stage and put it on the music stand, and then they asked you to play. And so that's how that used to work. So
I can see Kim doing that. Yeah.
Well, maybe we should have a type of round.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
forward
absolutely.
Like
It sounds more like a librarian audition than it does a percussion audition. We adore our orchestra librarian here at the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra. I simply think we wouldn't exist if it weren't for Kim and all the work she does for us. So the Cleveland, we talk about orchestras having sound. You know, you talk about the Chicago Symphony Orchestra brass section. You talk about the strings of the Cleveland Orchestra. Is that the same for percussion? Is timpani? Is it the same? And what are those orchestras and what are the reputations?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
I think we both.
Yeah.
Would both
Both
agree on
percussion
that.
and timpani.
Yeah.
And Cleveland is probably the most distinct of that kind of school for timpani. And I mean, there are others with percussion, but I mean, a lot of the American school of timpani playing originates in Cleveland. And there are a couple of other, you know, Cloyd Duff in Cleveland, Saul Goodman in New York, Fred Hinger in Philadelphia. but a lot of what's really spread and what's stuck around with, you know, the majority of working timpanists now is some version of the Cleveland school. Not completely, but it's definitely.
And is it a technique? Is it an instrument? Is it a mallet?
Yes.
What is it? Yes, all of the above.
Yes.
So what is it? Break it down for us.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm an interesting case. Chris actually went to Cleveland and got everything directly from the source. I got a lot of stuff secondhand from people who went to Cleveland. So what I do is, I mean, it's probably not exactly what you would be taught if you went there, but it's pretty similar. And a lot of it is really focused on clarity and just pureness of tone in general. I think, you know, compared to some schools, it's a little bit more refined and more in kind of a box, if that makes sense. Not quite as loud. That's what I think of with Cleveland. I think Severance has a lot to do with that, which I think applies really well to auditions. Playing, you know, timpani as a solo instrument is kind of an interesting thing. I mean, there are a lot of different. I mean, every timpanist in the country plays completely differently, but the Cleveland school is pretty pervasive.
Do you feel the same way, Chris?
Yeah.
Not that he got it secondhand, but
Well, I got it. Let me.
He had a great
I got it
teacher.
secondhand from
Javon is
fantastic
great.
teachers.
Yes,
I don't want to minimize that.
no, of course.
Yeah.
And Javon's been out here. He was actually
Yeah.
Javon Gilliam, principal of NSO,
Yeah.
Timpanist. He was just out here back in, what was it, January of 2020 when
Yeah.
we were, you know, one of our last concerts that we got to play, one of the last masterworks. It might have been the second to last one, where we played Chassis 10.
Yeah.
And he was actually in the section, and it was kind of funny because, you know, as associate timpanist, Brad was out of town at the time, and so I stepped into that role of principal timpanist for that piece. And it was a really weird situation with Javon in the percussion section.
On bass drum.
On bass drum. Yeah, and you know, a little nerve-wracking
Sure.
having a player of his caliber on stage with you, knowing the reps so well, and you're playing his principal instrument, where in any other case the roles might be reversed. So that was interesting.
So speaking of repertoire and, you know, maybe things that we've played over the past, you know, 3-4 years, 3-4 months that you were able to play with the orchestra, what is repertoire that when you see it come across the roster, you go, all right, this is going to be a good week. I'm excited to play this. What really gets you guys going?
I think a lot of Russian composers for percussion, you know, or Scandinavian, you know, a lot of Shostakovich, Prokofiev, Stravinsky, you know, thinking about Rimsky-Korsakov, you know, whether it be Capriccio, whether it be Scheherazade, you know, those pieces that, and, you know, it's interesting too, a lot of them are programmatic in nature. And it's interesting that those tend to be the pieces where percussion is predominant. Mussorgsky, another one, Pictures at an Exhibition. We played that back in 2017, 2018. And that was great. You know, yeah, that's the repertoire that comes to mind for me as a percussionist.
Yeah, it's a little bit different for timpani.
Yeah.
Just as we've been used more extensively for longer, I think. But some of the same people, I mean, definitely Shostakovich, Prokofiev, Mahler is maybe number one, but also Tchaikovsky, Brahms, Beethoven. I mean, some of the best timpani parts are Beethoven timpani parts. Yeah, so it's a little different. I think we're on almost everything. You know, timpani is on almost all of the major pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
going back to Baroque works as well, kettle
Right.
drums and sorry, Chris, I took it there.
Well, you would know the most
Yes,
about Baroque.
yes, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Juilliard historical performance, everybody. Juilliard.
So we had a question that I want to ask as percussionists. This comes up a lot. What's the weirdest thing outside of the Mahler box, which was referenced on a previous show? The question is, what's the oddest thing you've had to play as a percussion instrument?
I don't know about oddest, but one of the interesting things about being out here and playing some of the Pops concerts and other things that we get to do out here as percussionists, there have been certain concerts where I've gotten to play indigenous Hawaiian instruments such as the ipu and things like that, or lava rocks, So whenever we get to play concerts like that, it's really fun to be able to, take something that's maybe non-traditional or non-Western instrument and incorporate it into the orchestral canon.
Staying on the instrument topic, we have a question, and this is a good one because we can talk about our relationship with some friends here in town. Do you own your own set of timpani? Do you when you come to an audition, do you bring all 5, all 7 with you? How does that work?
No. I do. I actually own 3 timpani, but they haven't made it out here to Hawaii yet. And they're more like smaller, like gigging drums. Some auditions will allow you to bring timpani, and some timpanists have their own sets of drums. But in Hawaii, that's not really realistic.
Sure.
And some auditions will tell you have to use their drums. So yeah, I practice on the orchestra's timpani, and we actually, you alluded to this, we have new timpani coming thanks to Zach Morita at New Valley.
Thank you, Zach
Yeah,
Morita. He's a big supporter at Nui Valley, teaches percussion and other instruments there. Was a former student of Steve Dinian's as well, who was a former HSO percussionist, and he's been a huge ally to the percussion section and to the musical community locally. So thank you for all you do, Zach Morita.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any opportunity we get to talk about Zach,
And that I can't stress
yeah.
enough how much of a difference that specific those instruments are going to make here.
yeah.
It's night and day.
Yeah.
So.
Wonderful. Well, I hope to see them soon. Which leads me to the question, what's a timpani concerto look like? And are there any good ones out there?
It's an interesting question.
Brad's about to offend every living and dead composer, I have a feeling.
No, I don't know of any, no timpani concerto is going to stack up against any other instrument's concerto. Timpani is, to me, in a lot of situations, it does one thing really well, and that thing isn't, quick, virtuosic playing. But there are definitely some like fun concertos to play and listen to. There's the Glass double timpani concerto. That's a good one. I know you've mentioned Raise the Roof is a really fun piece. Yeah, that's Michael Doherty.
Originally for wind band, though, right? I think it was.
Yeah, I played that in high school.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I played that my junior and senior year of high school.
Show off.
Yeah.
No, it's a really fun piece.
Yeah.
But it's hard to write for timpani as a solo instrument. So in a lot of like Raise the Roof, I think we all enjoy that piece, but in a lot of the situations, the timpani actually takes a back seat and does more of like a rhythmic ostinato role. But it's at the front of the stage, so it's a solo instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many timpani are there? How many can you have?
As many as you want.
Okay. What's an average number?
Generally 4.
Okay.
That's the standard set. If we're talking about like classical pieces. A lot of those just require two. Start like in the late 19th century, you start adding a third drum, and then 20th century 4 is pretty standard. We also have a fifth piccolo, timpano. Timpano is singular. That comes out for like occasional 20th century works, but a lot of pops concerts. Also like pops in movies. I mean, we have a second large drum. It's a 32-inch that we bring out for basically any movie we're going to do. And there are movies, as we move into some of the other Star Wars, we might need to bring in, I just mentioned 6, we might need 8, we might need 9. So you can, a lot of these, the movie scores especially, are written with studio players in mind, and they have a lot of drums.
Sure.
Because, they don't have a lot of time to prepare the music to begin with. And they're written that way so that in a lot of situations, I keep going down different rabbit holes, but timpani do have a pedal, and you can change the pitch, but there's a limit to how much you can do that. And that limit
you opened a rabbit hole that you're going to need to explain for our audience.
I wish I had a drum here to show you.
It's got a pedal. We do have a few in the office. I thought about throwing one in my car to bring over here tonight, but I was afraid where that would go. So there's a pedal.
There is a pedal. The pedal is another like late 19th century, early 20th century invention that's become standard on all drums. And the pedal, if you go this way, it raises the pitch, it tightens the head, and if you go this way, it loosens the head and lowers the pitch. So there's a lot that I can do. I can play scales on the drums, but there's a limit to how fast you can do that. There's a limit to how good it's going to sound and how clean the pitches are going to be, depending on what you need to do. Generally, if there are 2 notes on the same drum that I need to play, if they're more than a whole step apart, then it's going to be really challenging to execute well. So it's limited, but if you come to a movie, or if we're playing a Bartók piece or a lot of different 20th century works, you're going to see if you could see my feet, they're moving a lot. So
I think that's an important thing to differentiate. The timpani are pitched. You're changing the pitch of your drums based on what's in the music, which is largely based on the key of the piece, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So do you envy the timpani player when you're not playing, or are you happier as a percussionist? Final answer.
In our section, the triangle player is affectionately known as the princess of the section.
Okay.
And usually I get that honor of playing triangle.
I didn't know that. I'm learning.
You're learning. This is our section. Bass drum is known as the buckets. These are all HSO terms. You're hearing it here first, kids.
We actually, when Becca was on the show, we talked a lot about how difficult the triangle is. So I think that's as we're celebrating Women's History Month here, I think that's a real testament that it goes to the princess.
That is exactly the point I was making. Yeah. I'm so glad you brought it full circle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think 100%. They're all overselling you on the triangle.
Are they? Yeah, all these like extras and doublings.
They just want you to think it's really hard.
Get out.
Yeah, great. Well, this is another question that we like to ask on here, and kind of getting outside the musical realm. When you're not practicing, which I know you both spend a lot of time at the Union, where the percussion have their own room, their own den. I understand that you practice in.
Thank you to Local 677. We hope that continues. It's a great partnership. It allows the section to be able to thrive. It's a big support to HSO. So thank you, Local 677, for continuing to have Studio 3 as our percussion practice room.
Yes, write your local union and thank them for the support of the percussion studio. Just think, they could be your neighbors and they could practice at home. That's the alternative, right?
It's true. Yeah, the entire city.
I don't think my neighbors would like that.
No, I don't think so either. Yes. So outside of symphony life, how your bracket's doing. What's the?
We can't talk about that.
We can't talk about the brackets.
So bad
Okay.
right now.
All right, so
We gotta skip that top. Maybe if it was, maybe if it was the fall and we were talking about fantasy football.
See,
but-
normally, so I neglected to mention, but you might have figured out from context, I am from Kentucky. So normally, as a Kentucky basketball fan, this is a really great time of the year, but it's kind of a sore subject.
Well, there was, you were from Kentucky. There was that, and I did bring the bourbon this evening.
It's true.
Because
It's
of
on brand.
all of those things. So little Four Roses. I wish we had a quiz question this evening because we'd send you home with a bottle of Four Roses, but wasn't quite in the budget this week. But instead, we have. A wine from Hosser Wines that we don't have available with us. We didn't bring it on set this evening. We couldn't trust the fine bottle of wine around these two.
Degenerates.
Yes. So we need a quiz question this evening. And, I think we'd like to keep it, kind of the topic of percussion, about the instruments, about the people. There was I understand, a very famous percussionist that played with the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra that also was a composer as well. Is this correct? Am I going the right direction with this?
Sure.
I don't know the answer.
Oh, great. Well, then we're definitely going. All right, scratch that quiz question. We'll come back to another one.
Stu Chaffetz, where are you when we need you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yes. So, thanks. You just ruined quiz question number 2. We have had.
spectacular.
This is a wonderful bottle of wine. We have some wonderful listeners joining us this evening. For those who have watched all 32 episodes now of Tuning Up, I mentioned earlier we had our other section members of the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra, but we had another percussionist join us on Tuning Up, who happens to also, he moved from the back of the orchestra to the front of the orchestra. And all you have to do is text us the name of that former percussionist with the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra, whose name may have been mentioned a few minutes ago. And we'll have a wonderful bottle of wine from Hosser, our friends down the street here in Chinatown, who continue to support us week after week here at Tuning Up. So text your answers in, and we've got a few more questions to get to here. But, so no brackets. I have to ask, you both have a good relationship with our concertmaster, Iggy, who, on 32 weeks in a row now I've spent with him, and I'm missing him dearly this evening. What did he say when you were going to join us on the show tonight? Was there any...
Iggy, if you think you can text me and you can talk we're keeping this PG. But let's see what Mr. Concertmaster here said when he found out that myself and Brad were coming on the show tonight. Tuning up. Here he says at 3:54 today. Tuning up. The Three Amigos, the Three Musketeers, the Three Stooges, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Can we talk about that one for a minute?
I think that starts on this side.
Okay.
And then Ghostbusters, question mark.
Yes. Well, as Iggy is not here this evening because we are the orchestra for Hawaii Opera Theater. They're doing a filming of a new work by Laura Kaminsky, who it will be streamed coming up in a few weeks here. It's just for 6 musicians and librarians, so 7 of our musicians are over there this evening recording. And I'm thrilled at the opportunity to collaborate with the opera during this time. It's been a challenge with singing and all those sorts of things. Looking forward as we get out of this, what does the future hold for the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra? And I want to caveat this a little bit with 13 months ago, when I was here in February and there was the announcement for my position with the orchestra, I had the opportunity to sit down with two members of the PRAC, Chris and Brad, and they interviewed me and asked some questions about the future, about what the orchestra was going to look like. They left out the fact that there was going to be a pandemic a little less than a month and a half after that. So, but we talked about the future and the importance of musicians and management and the community working together to sustain this orchestra. So, that aside now, what's the future? What opportunities do we have at our hands now as we return to a live audience? You know, some of the things we've learned over the past year with the digital performances. What's striking to you both?
I mean, I think it's really interesting. In a lot of ways, the pandemic has accelerated a lot of these trends, and we've had to figure out some of these things that might have waited a little bit into the future. So things like this, connecting to the community in as many ways as possible, making the orchestra seem more human. That's really important, whether it's education or just various different engagement things. That's super important. And digital engagement as well, which I think it's a great setup here at Hawaii Theater. So that's really important. I don't think, going to repertoire, I don't think that classical music is going away, but I think it's really important that we continue to expand that with, working with living composers, and also expanding, doing a lot of pops, doing movies, and not thinking of that as anything lesser than the masterworks. I think honoring that for what it is and recognizing that the audience wants to hear that, and I think that's really important too. What else?
Hey, one of my favorite concerts in recent past was being able to, play Led Zeppelin and Journey
fun.
on Timpani.
Yeah.
That concert was packed. I've never seen NBC so packed. And, people hung out afterwards, as if it was, Hawaiian Brian's or something. And, everybody was hanging out, outside in front of NBC. And so it was a lot of fun to be able to, feel that energy on stage for those kinds of concerts. And it's definitely not less than in terms of the Masterworks concerts that we do.
It's so cool to see those kinds of concerts bring in people who've never been to an orchestra concert. And, in some of those situations, as bad as this is, some people who are afraid to come to an orchestra concert for, a variety of reasons, of ridiculous reasons, they come to Led Zeppelin and they realize, this isn't so bad. This is
The symphony rocks.
This is pretty cool. And then, maybe next week they come to Shostakovich and realize
music that
cool
rocks.
Music that rocks.
That's actually,
it's so that's
it's like
amazing.
it's in the marketing.
Somebody was
It's like it's in the marketing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Heather.
Yeah.
yeah.
Some more diversity in programming and
we're doing a lot of that, and the stuff that, I listened to Becca's Tuning Up, and she was talking about the, importance of, Hawaiian culture and trying to honor that in as many authentic ways as we can. We have the Symphony of the Hawaiian Birds, which is one of the cooler things that we do, and, as much as we can expand those sorts of projects, I think that's really cool. The oboe concerto we did,
What about education? You especially, with both of your backgrounds, coming up through the San Francisco program and then all of the educational experience that you have. Why is that important? How do we do more of it? What is it that?
Yeah. If there are any students out here, and what I tell my own students, and whenever I am privileged and get the fortune to be able to work with HYS, one of our partner organizations, Hawaii Youth Symphony, what I tell those students is, there's two extremely important things as students under the age of 18 that you can do to get better as a musician and aspiring musician. And that's, number one, you've got to listen to a lot of music. Recordings, yeah, but you have to go to live musical concerts. If you're not going to live classical music concerts, orchestral, chamber, right? We have a lot of partner organizations. We have the ballet, we have Hawaii Opera Theater, we have HOT, we have we have all of there's the Symphony. There's you have everything you could want here. Chamber Music Hawaii, right? There's a lot of music. You got to go out. You got to go out and actually physically go there after the pandemic.
When it's safe to do so.
After the pandemic. But there's a lot of stuff online that we're posting too, and there's a lot of educational partnerships that we're continuing virtually right now, and that's been great to connect. And so the other thing, besides going to actual concerts and listening to music, is reading a lot of music, right? I especially say that to my percussion students a lot, because with percussion you tend to have students who want to practice very hard 4-mallet marimba solos over 3, 4, 5 month periods, a very difficult piece that they try to learn over a long period of time. And while it seems fun to be able to play those pieces, it's really more beneficial to learn a lot of music, be reading a lot of music every single day, to be able to have a foundation, and you keep increasing your ability to read. Your reading level goes up exponentially when you just keep reading more music week to week. Play your etudes, play your method books, put all your solos. Do solo ensemble, right? Do select band. Do all of these things and get the opportunity to work with a lot of these things. You get to work with HSO musicians. Do it.
I think that's one of the really cool things that was happening back when all of this set in. I remember hopping on an Instagram Live, and Chris is there doing your etudes with students from public schools, from other schools, private schools here in Hawaii. And, it's like a half an hour just going through, and I was, that's what that noise is next door. Like actually being able to actually see, the technique that you're developing and the importance of the mechanics and all of those sorts of things. But, to really, what technology has afforded us during this time is that ability to peel back the curtain, to really be able to have that, access to students, and for the students to have access to the symphony. But, with your background, how does the symphony, going forward here, how do we diversify what we do on the educational side of things? Is it just more of everything, or is it more specialized?
It's a great question. It's a hard question.
Sorry, I said no hard questions.
No, it's fine. I like it. I think one of the more... So what Chris was talking about is what we do with music students. I think that's really important, and we can do a better job of connecting with local music programs and becoming familiar faces and becoming real assets to everyone here. And also younger students who aren't playing an instrument yet. Talking about I said something earlier about how some people see coming to an orchestra concert as intimidating for some reason. If they've been coming to orchestra concerts since they were in elementary school, it's suddenly not as intimidating. And we've all had the experience, I'm sure, of playing Peter and the Wolf or something like that, and having a 6-year-old come up and look at the timpani, and just see their... Okay,
quick.
Yeah.
Rapid fire round. Here's another question off the cuff. Can I do this?
Yeah, we don't have any more wine to give away, but...
It's not a giveaway, but it's a question. So please tune in and tune up and give us your answers. The question is, in Peter and the Wolf, Prokofiev's piece, what do the timpani represent? Each instrument group within the orchestra in Peter and the Wolf represents a different character in the narrative. It's a programmatic piece. So the question is, what do the timpani represent?
And if you answer correctly, we'll select a winner to have a timpani lesson with Chris in the front of our office.
That sounds great.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. We do have those timpanis at the front of our office.
Yeah, you do.
It's. I think I was talking with Becca about the idea of, we should have an immersive experience where, you get to come in and maybe we do a little video of the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra playing in like a Dance Dance Revolution, like a mallet.
We could talk about that.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Well, we do every year. We usually have a petting zoo,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So a musical petting zoo. For those who don't know, you'll come to the symphony. It's usually for a family concert where the program is representative of that for families. And you bring your kids, and usually what we do is we have a lot of HSO musicians go into the lobby of NBC or wherever we're playing, and we bring those instruments out, and we let you guys play them. We let the kids play them and experience what it's like, to try out all those different instruments, whether it be harp, whether we're bringing out timpani or percussion, whether it's clarinet or cello or violin. So, yeah.
Yeah.
We have some correct answers here, but I'm going to let a few more come in. So you're teaching a lesson, my friend.
Hey, you guys are staying sharp.
Yeah. So Peter the Wolf. Sorry, we were talking about having kids that are not musicians at performances.
Yeah, and inspiring them to maybe want to be musicians or to at least, enjoy this kind of music, be exposed to it at a younger age. I think that's really important. And just all of the above. The more we can do to become familiar faces in general in the city, the better off we are.
Well, we have this opportunity here in Hawaii to really do that. I think it's one of the many reasons that drew me here. The amount of influence that the symphony can have because we are landlocked. We are out here. We are the only professional orchestra here in Hawaii, and I think that it kind of goes to our mission. It's how do we serve this whole community with music? Yeah.
I'd like to add to that. Whenever I get the chance, in any circumstance, when this topic is brought up, I always like to emphasize the fact that when you're supporting the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra, you're supporting the organization, you're supporting the musicians. But it's not just about the concerts that we're playing. It's not just about the entertainment of actually attending with your family. It's about education for the Keiki, right? If you're talking about music education in Hawaii, the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra has an immense impact, whether it be private schools, public schools, right? We have our music education program through the symphony. Right? Whether we're shipping in kids from public schools to attend the Symphony of the Hawaiian Birds. It's not just about the concert for your family on a Pops concert or a Masterworks concert. It's about music education as well. And so when you support the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra, you're supporting those musicians so they can stay and they can also educate the next generation of musicians.
An important role that the symphony plays here in the community. So we look forward to doing more of that. The petting zoo is still 6 feet away for now, but we're working. In the interim here, we've got a little bit of time. We've got another month, 7 weeks or so, until we're looking at some live performances. And so we do have a little bit of time where we're excited to actually do some digital petting zoo and to put some more of these materials together with all of the things that we've learned over the past year about how even going forward, if there's materials that we're able to put together that go out into the classrooms before they come to the symphony, I think we just have this ability to have so much more engagement with the community and to utilize this time that we have here going forward. So.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, PRAC, PRAC, Public Relations Advisory Committee, one of the many subcommittees that musicians of the orchestra are part of pro bono. We spend time to try to do extra things to give back to the community, and one of the things we were doing were giveaways, right, and interactive, also questionnaires and other things, trivia questions every week during concerts, right? And what we saw through that is our ability to connect with our patrons, but it sounds like a talking point, but there were families we were actually really able to connect with. Getting DMs from, hey, we won, these tickets for our family, and we took, our 5-year-old cello student to a Beethoven 9 concert. And then they won free tickets, through the stuff we were doing on social media to go to our Shostakovich 10 Masterworks concert. That kind of stuff. I mean, you can't. That's not a talking point. That's not a figure on a spreadsheet. We're really actually reaching people, and I'd love to be able to see more of that. And I think you touched on that in terms of doing a little bit more interactive things digitally before concerts to try to get more students engaged, but also families.
What was the first concert you remember going to?
It was. It shouldn't be a hard question, right?
This is 20 questions.
Yeah.
The first orchestra concert I went to was actually Cleveland in Severance, and I don't remember the program, but I remember that the concerto, the 12-tone piano concerto in the first half was really tough, and they had to stop in the middle.
I love that. I love that when that happens. We're human too.
Our band director told us, "You guys have no idea how big of a deal this is."
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that's the first orchestra concert. Before that, I don't know what it would have been.
Yeah. Chris, what was yours? Was it with San Francisco Symphony then, with the program?
Oh, I'm sure it was with SF. And growing up, I got to with MTT at the helm. He came in the early 90s, and I'm a 93 baby, hashtag millennial, not Gen Z. I got to grow up with MTT, and there was a lot of Copeland, there was a lot of Bernstein, there was a lot of new music, living composers. So I got to, because of that, that's the type of rep that's great for a percussionist.
Yeah.
That's all, new music. That's all, it's drumming. Seeing, oh God, there were so many things. The composer from Berkeley,
Berkeley.
The composer from Berkeley.
The composer from Berkeley. There's a lot of new music. Piece Ascariot. He wrote his Ascariot. It's I'm forgetting the name. What's his name?
And for
John Adams. John Adams.
Oh, for our third quiz question.
I answered it for you.
Yes.
But we have some questions. You said somebody answered.
Well, we did. So it's the Hunters, correct?
Yeah.
Great. Well, Kelsey.
You guys are awesome.
Kelsey will be getting a timpani lesson.
Kelsey, I wonder who that is.
Yes. We have another question that I have to ask these because this one is from Norman.
Don't know who that is.
Would either of you like to demonstrate percussion ability senza instrument, rather by using hand clapping, finger snapping, or vocalizing?
So, Norm, my question to you in response to that, would you like to be impeached from the orchestra committee? No. What are you trying to get us into here,
A little
Norm?
clapping music. There's 3 of us here.
That's enough.
It's like 7 minutes left.
Did I do it right?
And who's the composer?
Question number 4. We did have some correct answers here, and the very first answer we got, and she's amassing quite the wine collection, is Mari. Mari, another bottle of wine for you. I have 2 others for you that are still in my closet. Well,
You gotta cut it off at some point.
I can't. She gets,
If you're right, you're right.
If you're right, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. We had a couple. The correct answer was Stu Chaffetz. Stu was a timpani player, wasn't he, with the symphony? And then what's the joke? He lost one stick.
From 2 sticks to
2
1.
sticks to 1. Yes, absolutely. Any aspirations of that for either of you?
I don't think I have the personality for that.
if I wasn't a kind person, I would ask what that personality is. But okay, so no trip to the front of the orchestra.
Well, to be fair, Stu doesn't really have the personality for that either, but he does it really well. And maybe that's why he does it really well.
He does, yes.
We're going to edit that in post. Don't worry, guys.
Yeah.
And Stu, if you're watching.
Stu conducted one of our Sounds of Resilience programs. The repertoire for Sounds of Resilience, there wasn't a tremendous amount of percussion.
Look, I'm not holding a grudge, but I am.
I know. I'm with you. I'm with you. So,
So, here's another question. Messiaen. Messiaen, birds. It's a piece that has a lot of prominent percussion, and it's also the name of a very famous Cleveland-based 1980s rock and roll band where the associate principal timpanist of the Cleveland Orchestra was a member of that rock and roll band in the 80s. What's the name of that piece of repertoire?
It's a real
composed
thing.
by
Really?
Messiaen.
can you say the part about being a member of that band one more time? Because that surprised me.
Sure, one of the members, well, multiple members of that
don't
band.
forget. Yeah.
Tim Adams, as
Tim
well
Adams,
as
former principal timpanist of Pittsburgh.
Don't
Really?
say the Cleveland.
I won't say the
member, though.
Cleveland guy. Also, Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails.
Nine
right?
Inch Nails, yes, right, exactly.
Really?
Yes,
And
we're
this-
going deep into Cleveland
And this Cleveland
percussion history.
Okay.
associate timpanist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone has that answer, please text me now and not at 11 o'clock tonight when you watch a rerun of this.
When you're watching reruns of Hawaii 5-0.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we are coming to the end of our hour here. I really appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you both. And I think I'm more eager, not that this wasn't enjoyable, to get you both back on stage here, which we've been working towards for, it seems like months at this point. And I'd say we're between 7 and 10 days away from an announcement on that, if everything goes well. So we're looking forward to having a small audience and returning to live performances and launching a series here, our 21 Starlight series.
I like
Doesn't
that.
that have a ring to it?
It does, yeah, Starlight
Starlight.
series. And for those...
Star bright, star I see tonight. I wish I may, I wish I might. May I have this wish I wish tonight.
I don't think that's how it
No,
goes.
is that not that?
That's
that was a,
There were parts
That's not
of
quite.
it.
there was the.
It reminds me, though, of the episode where Iggy sang all of Mississippi Hot Dog.
Wrong.
No, he said it right. Yeah,
Oh.
he sang the whole thing right.
I got it wrong.
That will also make our best of. But all joking aside, we are really looking forward to getting back to in-person performances here as soon as May. And doing stuff outdoors, a Starlight series. We'll have some young artists joining us for these performances. We've launched our Nahoku Opio program, our Young Stars, our concerto competition for students of class of 2020 and 2021. I think we had a percussionist maybe ask a repertoire question. So those, it's really great. We're be able to provide an opportunity for these young musicians who have missed out on so many opportunities due to the pandemic. Get them up in front of the orchestra and performing for this community. You know, I think another one of those ways that we can really do something unique for Hawaii by involving them in our work, in our performances. So, and then we are, again, just coming up on a big announcement for our 21-22 season, which will kick off in September of next year. So exciting things. It's going to be a very busy 18 months. Let's just say that. And I think we all
Sounds
need
like
it.
a great contrast.
Yes, yes, after the last year. Before we go, any hobbies that either of you picked up during the pandemic? That
I don't have anything.
nothing.
Not really.
These are healthy hobbies.
Healthy hobbies. No, yeah, we were going with the healthy hobbies. Yes. I was curious because I know you both practiced a lot during this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Well, not in terms of practicing, but one of the things I really got into has nothing to do with music, and maybe none of you are interested in it, but is podcasting.
Really?
Not me actually doing it, but listening to podcasting, listening to podcasts.
What are some of your favorites?
Shout out to H3, hashtag cancel David Dobrik, Tiger Belly, big fan, Bobby Lee, God bless, Two Bears, One Cave, really great podcast. I like a lot of comedy podcasts, so that's kind of the genre that I'm into in terms of listening to podcasts.
Great. Okay. Are you a podcaster?
Yeah, more so this year than ever.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of like political podcasts.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
that kind
All
of
right.
stuff.
We'll save those. Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
This is an apolitical program.
Yes. Absolutely.
I said the word political.
Yes.
That's where we leave it.
And on that note, we must end our show.
Here are our sponsors.
Yes. Thank you for joining us for another Tuning Up. I promise Iggy will be back next week. We won't ever let him miss another show. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your support. We truly appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you at a performance soon. Mahalo.